Hi, everyone. I am Alex, the campaign manager for Plow the Sidewalks.
And I'm Kyle, Executive Director of Better Street Chicago. Today, we just wanted to come with a little bit of an update about the Plow the Sidewalks campaign. If you've been paying attention over the last few weeks, you've probably been seeing a lot of our calls to action in order to support the Plow the Sidewalks pilot program. So we just wanted to share with you about some of the things that have happened recently and where things stand. First, we just kind of want to take it back a little bit to give you kind of a backstory on how we got here today. So this campaign started back in February of 2021 out of frustration because of uncleared sidewalks during the winter. Snow and ice piled up at bus stops and street corners. We were frustrated by it. We noticed that a lot of other people were similarly frustrated by it. And we thought, this seems like a problem that probably has a solution and probably has a disproportionate impact on a lot of different people who use wheelchairs, etc. And so we bought a couple of shovels and we went out and decided to see how long it took us to clear a bus stop and how long it took us to clear a corner. And we realized it really is just too big of a job to leave up to individual actors, which is the city's current policy. Sidewalk snow clearance is left up to the adjacent property owner or businesses, and the job just doesn't get done. As we did our research into it, we found out a lot of places have figured this out already, and they just plow their sidewalks just like they do the streets.
This isn't a new concept. There are cities that do this, perhaps most comparatively Toronto. So how does it work in Toronto?
So Toronto, it is a universal citywide service. They have actual sidewalk snowplows. Those are machines built for this specific purpose.
We continued developing out the campaign over the spring and summer, and then a real turning point for us was in December of 2021 when Access Living reached out to us. They reached out and they said the number one complaint we hear from our consumers every winter is about lack of sidewalk snow and ice removal. It is a huge issue for people who are dependent on mobility aids like walkers or wheelchairs. It also is a huge issue for folks who are blind, because when you use a white cane and you're dependent on auditory cues to navigate, and the snow muffles those sounds.
How would this help you, a pilot program like this where the city would be plowing all the sidewalks and be responsible, just like it is for the streets?
It will help tremendously. There are a lot of places that I go in my neighborhood, so I just rely on the sidewalks being clear to get to my locations. It would mean that I wouldn't have to travel in the streets for blocks that are unshoveled, for blocks that have a lot of vacant buildings that are not being occupied. Those sidewalks don't get shoveled. So it'll open up my ability to travel to places and to live life how I would normally live life.
They came aboard with us in December of 2021, and we have been in an ongoing partnership with them. We continue to be so grateful for their support. That led to just continued ongoing grassroots development, taking meetings with elected officials, other community organizations, and just building our network and talking to people and explaining the premise of the campaign. And this is what we're advocating for and what we're pursuing. We did some grassroots door knocking and just canvassing business districts with flyers and posters and saying this is what we're pursuing. People were really into it. There was a huge enthusiastic response. Come November of 2022, we were actually able to hold our first rally in City Hall. We did it outside the mayor's office for people with disabilities. At that time, we had 10 city council supporters, as well as a huge number of supporting organizations that showed up with us. And it really kicked it up to the next level, because by that time, everybody was talking about Plow the Sidewalks, which led to us actually passing the Plow the Sidewalks pilot program ordinance in July of 2023. This ordinance established a working group consisting of the Department of Streets and Sanitation, Chicago Department of Transportation, and organizations like Better Street Chicago, including AARP Illinois, Access Living, Active Transportation Alliance, Equiticity, Metropolitan Planning Council, Northwest Center, Shared Use Mobility Center, and the Southwest Collective. And the goal of this working group was to design a pilot program and issue a report of recommendations to City Council by May 31st of 2024.
So that's what we did. We worked with the city over the span of a year to discuss through what a pilot program should look like and plan that out. It required a lot of collaboration, a lot of back and forth, a lot of really tense discussion. But ultimately, we came down to an agreement on what was published in that report of May 31st this year. And so what that looks like is 4 pilot zones throughout the city. They're each 1.5 square miles. One is in Uptown and Edgewater in the north side. Another is on the west side, spanning from Austin up to Belmont Cragen. Another is on the southwest side near McKinley Park and Gage Park. And then the final zone is on the south side in Englewood. The pilot would operate for 7 different snow events over the span of time. And with that, there would be a couple of different implementation approaches that would be tested out in each of the different zones so that we can test out and see what works and what doesn't. So that was what was released on May 31st. Unfortunately, since then, the city has failed to meet key implementation deadlines. Over time, we caught wind that perhaps this program wasn't going to be included in this year's budget. And unfortunately, that is what came true as budget season approached.
We knew that this budget was going to be very difficult, but we felt very strongly that we needed an explicit line item for Plow the Sidewalks, both as an accountability for all the people that have been in collaboration with us for these many years now at this point, but also so that we can hold the city accountable and say, you know, this line item exists, this money exists, and it's important that you follow through on these promises. So we've been organizing, and I think a lot of you folks have seen the social media posts and the emails that have gone out asking folks to call their alders, email their alders, and basically just going back to those grassroots, that where we came from, of just showing that this is something that the community is invested in, that people all over the city of Chicago are invested in, that they actually want to see this come to fruition. So that's what we've been doing for the past few weeks, and we want to thank you all for standing with us and making those calls and sending those emails, because it has had an impact. And we did secure a $500,000 line item in the final budget amendment that passed in City Hall this past Monday, December 16th.
So this is really exciting for us because we went from an unfunded program to having funding for this program included in the budget. So that's a big win. However, we ourselves very much admit this does not fully fund this pilot program. We need to secure more funding, and there's a lot of work still left to be done to ensure that the pilot program gets implemented. But we're in it to win it. We are in the fight until the bitter end, and we are excited to be able to take this moment and continue to push forward to see this pilot program happen.
We want to take this moment to thank everybody that's been with us, as I said, for so many years, for the community and partner organizations that have been doing this advocacy work alongside us, all of the community members that have been making those phone calls, doing all of that community outreach. We are so grateful, and this would not have happened with all of you folks, because this really has been a pressure campaign from multiple different fronts, and we're so grateful for the support that everybody has brought to the table, and we intend to see this through. There's more to come. The fight continues, but we believe fully and fundamentally that together we will prove that the city of Chicago can plow the sidewalks.